Good. I hope everybody's doing well. Ate a good lunch, feeling great. So our session today is about metrics that matter. Clearly, you guys could read that long title, so I won't go into those details. My name is Justin Bruce. I serve as the Director of Innovation and Performance for the City of Jackson. A lot of you are probably wondering, what is that? Well, it's just a one-man department that's kind of been assigned to bringing data, accountability, transparency, and performance measures to our city. So this office was kind of retitled in back in spring of 2015. And since that time, we've been working to put together a performance metrics and measurement program for the City of Jackson. And today, I don't want to bore you with a lot of technical talk or a bunch of overarching or overreaching goals there. Let's kind of get to the nitty gritty. I'll tell you about our journey, tell you about some of the obstacles we faced, tell you about the power of collaboration, as our title talks about, and how we're seeing whether or not that collaboration is actually working in our favor. So when we started off at the City of Jackson, we came under very prolific mayor, Mayor Tony Yarber, who was a former educator and principal, administrator. And one of the things that he mentioned while in office was that city government is pretty inefficient, maybe government altogether. We work in a manner that doesn't necessarily react to facts, but in a lot of cases to nuance, to feelings, and to the things that we like or the things that we've always done. And so he said, hey, I need to get into a place where we can get on the same page, we can talk the same language, we can do things that are going to make a positive impact on our city and that are going to be provable, not just with, fluff that you make up in your back office, but with real data, with real analytics, with real things that can be proven outside of just your own research. And so back in spring of 2015, we got this mandate, and the mayor basically said, I want to measure every single thing we do. I want to make sure that I've got data that shows me exactly how we're doing it, when we're doing it, why we're doing it. Now, we got this question from a lot of department heads. We understand what you mean by measuring, but why? Why do you want to put the stringent need for us to measure every single facet of our day-to-day operations? And the response was simple. A very common quote we say, what gets measured gets done. But see, the City of Jackson had a different problem. We didn't just need to measure stuff so that it got done. We needed to measure stuff so that it got done more efficiently, more effectively, and honestly, in a more excellent fashion. So, what did we do? In April of 2015, I had the wonderful pleasure of working with a few of my colleagues to submit a grant application to Bloomberg Philanthropies for what they considered a What Works Cities initiative and program. During that application process, they asked us several things about what our city was doing, why we wanted to have a statistic program, why we needed performance measurements in the first place, what our overall vision for the system, and really what our overall vision was going to be once we got the system going, what we anticipated the earnings and growth being from instituting a program that was all about performance measurement. In that process, we realized that our city was not just behind, we were just, oh my, ancient. And I'm sure some of you have that same issue, where you've been in organizations or in agencies that for so long they've done things one way, or they've done things this way, or they've looked at things one way, or they've looked at things with tunnel vision, and they've gotten by. But the real question becomes, when you face real issues and tough choices, are those ways that we've been implementing and we've been going by for years the right ways? And so in the City of Jackson, we went into this process during that application phase where we tested each of our departments. We went door to door talking to people about their measures, their metrics, their data, their analysis, their ability to analyze. And what we realized was pretty dumbfounding. I'll get to that in a minute. But before I get to that, I want to help you understand how we formalize our JackStats, or our performance measurement program. Now, I mentioned that we applied for funding from a grant program in 2015 of April that was going to allow us the opportunity to move forward with our program for performance measurement. But that's not the only thing that that program was meant to do for us. You see, our belief is that performance measurement, outside of having transparent data, is kind of useless. Let me explain. We feel like there's no need in you measuring anything if the data you're going to use to measure is not readily available and accessible and provides an opportunity for communication interdepartmentally that breaks down silos and ultimately forces collaboration. So our task was twofold. One, we had to get rid of this spirit that says, hey, this is my lane. You don't know what you're doing over here. Stay away. We had to break those silos, but we also had to give people a reason to understand why those silos needed to be broken. So in August of 2015, we heard back from our friends at What Works Cities, and we were accepted as one of the first 8 cities to be in this program. We were given 3 specific scopes of work. Our first scope came with the Sunlight Foundation, out of Washington, D.C., an organization that specializes in the use of open data transparency, transparency with data collection, and those types of things. Everything at that particular time was quarterbacked by our friends at Results for America. We later entered into a scope of work with our friends at Johns Hopkins University, Center for Government Excellence, in which we started our JAX-STATS program, Map Out. And of course, all of that was funded by Bloomberg Philanthropies. Briefly, kind of want to talk to you about those 3 scopes of work, what we were able to accomplish. And then as we finish up, I'll talk to you about where we are now and why I really think metrics matter in our organization. When we started out doing this, talk about open data, talk about performance measurement, talk about measures, it was commonplace across the globe. Cities and counties and states across the country are moving to more performance-driven programs. I had the wonderful opportunity to sit under a young lady by the name of Beth Blower, who is the author and founder of what we call StateStat, which was started in Baltimore, Maryland, in the state of Maryland. She also was the founder of CityStat, which started in Baltimore. I had the wonderful pleasure of sitting with Beth and learning all of these integral parts that they had to fight and come over to introduce a stat program in their city and then eventually into their state. What she helped me to understand was that we cannot tackle metrics and we cannot look at metrics as if they are a singular engine in our organizations. What I mean is, if a metric doesn't change the culture of your organization, then it's not really a metric. If a metric doesn't change how you fundamentally look at a problem, then it's not a metric. Really, that's just a task that you're watching to make sure someone's accomplishing. But a metric literally forces you into an innovative state of mind. So how do we get there? We said, okay, What Works Cities, we're blank canvas. We're the city of Jackson, Mississippi. We've never done this before. We don't have measures. The only thing we have in place in our departments are what we call matrices. They turn those matrices into us to let us know what they've got going on, the status of the projects. That's about it. And they said, well, first off, you got to figure out where your data is. Rule number 1 for us is you can't measure what you can't collect. If you don't have the data to measure what's really going on, then your analysis is flawed. First and foremost, we had to get to a program in a state where we brought that data out. We made that data open. We made that data transparent. So we took a few different steps. Internally, we made sure that departments start sharing reports. Even if it doesn't have anything to do with you, share it. Put it out there. Let's put it out there on the server where everybody can actually access it and see what's going on. Because what we come to realize is that a lot of the collaboration breakdowns in communication that were happening interdepartmentally were simply because people just couldn't get to the information they needed You know, Public Works needs to get to the building codes and the zoning practices, and you know, they just took forever to get to. And so we started looking at little problems like that, and we said, well, we can eliminate some of the miscommunication by just opening up this data. We opened up the data. So we developed a data governance committee. We signed the first open data policy in the state of Mississippi. We went to council, made sure that it was ingrained in the city by ordinance, so now it's a law. The city's data is open by law. And then we moved to the bigger thing, the thing the mayor wanted, his STAT program. Now that we had data, we had to realize how to leverage that data for insights that were meaningful to the city. So we started the process with our friends at Johns Hopkins of developing what we call JACStats. JACStats is a bi-weekly departmental meeting that allows us to talk about key issues and things that are going on in our departments. It's not just your average meeting. It's not just a meeting where people come and report out and say, hey, you know, next week we've got this going on in such and such's department, and we would love for people to participate. Or, you know, hey, next week we're paving 7 streets. No, in JACStats meetings, you come, you're asked questions specifically about what the data shows. You're asked questions specifically about what's happening in your day-to-day operations. And then you're asked to report out on your plan of action to correct any negative flaws. So we went and we put JACStats together, and we went into this mode with our departments where we attempted to figure out what would best meet their needs. And we decided that we had to, for this to matter, for metrics to matter, we had to put this in a scope that was not only just understandable to our internal departments, but it had to be meaningful and leverageable for our external citizens. So what do I mean by that? I'm glad you asked. This is a wonderful screenshot of Jackson's Open Data Portal. And if the computer cooperates with me, I will show you this data portal live. And it did. Our Open Data Portal was part of how the city of Jackson decided we were going to make performance metrics not only matter to internal departments, but to citizens. Developing our portal, we took into consideration the things that our citizens wanted to see. We asked them about the things that most, I guess, bothered them, plagued them, and the things that they thought they couldn't have access to as readily and easily. Uh-oh. Excuse me. Maybe see? User malfunction, I'm sure. Yeah, it's thinking. All right. Well, you see from the screenshot, maybe I can show you there if I can get our little box.
Click yes.
Yeah, it's been clicked. Yeah.
It won't take the command.
It doesn't want to take the command. So, in essence, we built this data portal with the objective of making sure that not only our data was accessible to internal departments, but that certain data was accessible to our citizens. And we said that if performance measures are going to matter to us internally, they've got to matter to our citizens externally. If we're going to be accountable at the highest level of government, then we've kind of got to be transparent about it. It put us in this really, really strange place. And I'm sure a lot of you have been there. You know, where like you're changing something major in your organization, and people have been there for 20 and 30 years, and they're like, what are you thinking? You're going to put all of my crime data on the internet? You're going to put all of my building permit data on the internet? You're going to show all of these particular data sets that have pretty much everything to do with how this city is running right here online. Something we've never done. I got calls from department directors that were telling me stuff like, you know, sometimes we don't even share data with each other. So you're telling me to share data with the public? It was culture change. It was shallow. But it was necessary. Let me tell you why. I could not stand and say that we had a valid Jack Stats or performance program if I knew that we didn't have external stakeholders holding us accountable to having accurate information, on-time data, and producing real results. So on our open data portal, we have a tab that shows a high-level dashboard. Gives our citizens access to see certain particular information like how we're doing with early childhood literacy, how we're doing with crime prevention, how we're doing with fire prevention, how we're doing with blighted properties, you know, those things that people care about. We've got that out on the web. But internally, we've got over 125 metrics pretty much per department that I get to pump through every single 2 weeks. Isn't that wonderful? That show me internally how my departments are trending. Now, one of the other scopes of work that we did with What Works Cities was called Advanced Data Analytics. And in our Advanced Data Analytics scope, we tackled two separate issues. We tackled one issue that I consider a kind of it's a touchy subject. It's called right-sized government. We talked about the right size of your government based on FTE count, based on the budget, based on economic and geographic issues, based on your challenges. We did that. That was spooky. And then we also went into something that had never been done in our city before, and it still continues. We went into a study, a data analysis of our public works data. I wanted to know whether or not we could pinpoint, trend, and forecast when water mains were going to break. I wanted to know if we could forecast when streets needed to be repaved. I wanted to know if we could forecast or discover where we had the most water loss underneath our streets. Those are methods and things that have never happened in our city before. Those are things that we've never had the capacity to do. So when people say, do metrics matter? And when people ask, how does collaboration work? I point to this process and I say, our citizens, for the first time ever, will have the opportunity to see their city be smarter than the infrastructure that's there. For the first time ever, our city will have the upper hand against calamity. For the first time ever, our city can say, hey, not only are we doing trend analysis and doing analysis for our public works data, we're looking at the proper placement of fire vehicles, EMT, EMS responders, for first responders, for Jackson Police Department. Where should their beats really be? We're doing trend analysis of our data that helps us to really provide a better product to our citizens. So why does metrics, or why do metrics matter? I guess that's the question. Metrics only matter if they're producing results that make you better. If your metrics are only there for show, if your metrics are only to say that you have a program, if your metrics are only to say that you're transparent, your metrics probably don't matter to anyone, not even you. So the challenge, guys, that I have is how every day we not only make these metrics matter, but we make them matter more. How we leverage the data that we have, how we leverage the ability to talk to our departments and our agencies, our staff, about the things that they do on a daily basis that really make our organizations work. Now, this is where we started in August of 15. This is how we got going. But where we are now, I think is probably the scariest moment for us all. Because now we're at a place where not only the metrics matter, but we got to be held accountable to the metrics. So every 2 weeks, I get to sit with a lovely group of people. And I get to hound them I know that's a bad word. I get to hound them about their deficiencies. Yeah, I also tap them on the back for their wins, right? Because you know you have to do both. But I get to hound people about their deficiencies and how we can make government better. It's not fun, but it's necessary. And the fact of the matter is now, when we started this process, we had about 10 metrics per department. We were measuring 10 major things. Now, I maybe have 10 metrics per division in each department. We've got a working relationship to continue to dive deeper into what they're doing, so that not only they're getting the best benefit, but we're getting the best of life as well. And I'll close with a couple short little points. When I look back at the question of why metrics matter, and I want to make sure I continue to repeat that since that's the title of the segment. I think that, simply put, my answer would be metrics matter because they affect positive change at every level of government. That's simply put. I can say that about all 9 departments that I get to sit in a room with and hound over their 130, 125 measures that I look for every 2 weeks. I can say that because since we started hounding them, we've seen cost savings of $1.2 million in our community improvement division. We've seen a cut by 51% in what the time it takes to hire people. We've seen our turnover rate go down almost 25% because we're looking at data that helps us treat people better. We've seen op-eds written in departments almost 15 times in the last year about practices that have started based on them looking at data. We've seen growth exponentially from department heads and directors in their ability to analyze the data that they have in front of them. Data that they used to just fact check, slide over in a folder. Now that data helps them understand what's really happening in their departments and how to shift and make changes when necessary. So why do metrics matter? Why do they matter to me? I think they matter most to me because they're making Jackson better. And I think that at the cusp of all of this, metrics in your agencies and in your departments and in your staffs, I think you would say the same thing. That if the metric is making meaningful progress, then it's going to matter. I will close with this one thought. When we started thinking about how to roll out this major change in culture in the city, I don't think we realized how quickly it would take off. I don't think we realized how far we weren't behind, if that makes any sense, from what other people are doing. So let me be very honest. If you started doing performance measurement today, if you were serious about it, by the end of the year, you would be in the top list of states, top list of agencies. The gap isn't that great. There have been cities doing this for 10 and 15 years that still haven't been able to accomplish what we know we've accomplished in a year. It's a willingness. It's a commitment. It's a brutal honesty. I say it like this. Hopefully this is politically correct. At some point, we've all got to be bold enough to come in the room naked. Regardless of what we've been through, regardless of what we've seen, we've got to be transparent enough to come there with all of our flaws, all of our issues, sit at the table, and make good decisions on how to be better. If your metrics don't do that, then they don't matter. If your metrics don't make you feel like there are parts of you that you don't want people to see, then maybe they're not deep enough. Maybe not, they're not cutting the fat or the lack or the inefficiency that you really want to see. At the end of the day, our journey has led us to a practice where we can hold our city departments accountable for a number of things. I believe Ms. Jennifer will be speaking on priority-based budgeting. Our metrics directly shift us in line with our priority-based budgeting practice. Operationally, efficiently, workload, those types of measures help us to identify exactly what we've got going on. The City of Jackson is no different than any of your agencies or your organizations. It's no better either. We're attempting to do the same thing. Measure stuff that allows us to make people's lives better. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your attendance. And we look forward to hearing your questions after. Questions now? Okay, cool. If you have a question? Okay, you can ask questions. We started the program in August 2015. We officially launched JackStats in November of 2015. So it's coming up on its 1-year anniversary. Yeah. We might have
You should be proud.
We might have like some brownies. Any citizen, anybody can access certain data sets. Now, we have this working in two different sets. We have a public-facing set of data, which is being shared in the Data Governance Committee, and we have a private, internal set of data that helps us to run our JackStats meetings, our JackStats programs, etc. One of the things that's an interesting question. One of the things that I want to move to in the next few months is actually opening those JackStats meetings up to media and the public so that they can see literally the process of transparency that's going on in City Hall.
When you came, or I guess when y'all came to try to make this initiative, was there one thing that stood out above all others that you were trying to be able to accomplish, or like a problem that you were trying to solve?
I think the problem that we wanted to solve was our inability to readily attack problems, period. And I think it historically it's taken so long for you to hire outside people to come in and figure out what's really going on and address an issue. We just felt like it would be best, especially for all the, we got $1.4 billion worth of infrastructure work to do. We felt like it would just be meaningful for the city itself to have the ability to analyze and act on what it had in front of it. You know,
It's like unintended benefits.
yeah, there were plenty of unexpected wins from this. Who knew that small departments were going to become more efficient? So primarily, when you think about Point Benjamin, you start thinking about these big departments like police, fire, public works, which kind of all fit into public safety and infrastructure. But I started seeing wins in human and cultural services. We started seeing trends develop of them understanding, how to market better, how to do certain reach outs better. And as a result, they start to see revenues go up in different areas of their department as well. So it's really holistic. I mean, once the culture starts getting there, people are competitive. And once one department starts getting wins and you start seeing cost savings on this side of the street, they're like, no. I'm going to get some better. So we've been aided by that competitive nature